today, Dallas Mavericks fans and MFFLs all around? The Dallas Mavericks took care of business in Game 2, a road game for the 5 seed Dallas Mavericks against the 1 seed, the Oklahoma City Thunder. This was a game the Dallas Mavericks took care of business, I'm going to say, but took down the Oklahoma City Thunder. 119 to 110 is the final score. This was a team effort. I'm going to say it was a masterclass in just team ball. Sometimes you're not going to have guys playing their best. Sometimes you're not going to have guys as offensively dangerous in any specific game. But when you have a team around of guys that are just willing to get the job done and fill in whenever they need to, that's a dangerous product to put out there on the court. Luka Doncic last night, I believe, 29 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. This was a game Luka Doncic took care of business, and this is I'm gonna say this is one of the guttiest performances I've seen from Luka Doncic in the postseason. We know the issues he's had with his knee. We've known that he's kind of been trying to deal with some of these, these bang-ups, especially throughout the entire second half of the season for the most part. We've kind of been Luka Doncic is in, but he's playing through injury. Like I said, we're still fighting for a top 5 seed, so we couldn't really take the risk of sitting a Luka Doncic for too many games or anything. So he had to play through it, and obviously going through that tough, physical, brutal performance that the brutal output, that the Los Angeles Clippers were giving defensively. That was a physical series. So Luka Doncic was going to have to come in here and try to find his footing. In Game 1, it wasn't efficient or anything. We're talking about a 19-point game, and we're talking about Luka Doncic's career playoff standards in his 5-6 years in the league. This is a guy we expect to put up big numbers and have big impact on these games. But yesterday, I'm going to say it was the guttiest. He talks about it a little bit in the post game that he's kind of says this was maybe the toughest game he's played because he's having to deal with injuries. It hurts. It's not comfortable for him at all. But this was going to be one of those games where you're looking for your leaders to step up and show by example. Obviously, you have Kyrie Irving. I believe he puts up 9 points yesterday, but it was more of an all-around effort. You're talking about where he's playmaking, setting guys up. This wasn't a game where you can look around and say, Kyrie Irving did not put the ball in the bucket. And I found myself yesterday at certain spots saying, okay, we need Kyrie to pick it up. We need him to pick up some steam. We need him to contribute offensively, at least scoring. But when you're looking at the final product of what the Mavericks were able to do yesterday, it was a team effort, like I said. Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively at the center position. I believe they both end up with 1 block by the end of the game, but this was a game where you saw the center position play, have an impact. These are some guys, Daniel Gafford, a couple of nice momentum plays, especially a nice block he has off the backboard. We're talking about we just need them down there being that low post presence. I already said Daniel Gafford was still going to be able to be an impact in this series because I feel he does have the body type and just the physicality to be able to give a guy like Chet Holmgren a few issues. Now, let's be clear, Chet Holmgren is still a very capable player, a very nice young player in this league, but you want to give a little bit of a push. You don't want to let these guys bully us because, let's say, like I've said many times, especially yesterday, pregame, we're talking about Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, some of the biggest issues, but especially some of the biggest issues we had with Luka Doncic early on in his career, we're talking about with those Clippers series, is we did not have the guy down low to be able to keep any rim protection. We're talking about, obviously, we're throwing out Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber, sometimes that combination, and throwing in that mix and match type situation we had at the 5 position. It was nothing that was going to get the Mavericks to the promised land, but having a Daniel Gafford, having a Derek Lively, that combination, it is great to have because sometimes it's going to allow, many times we're going to be able to get some of these easy baskets. We know Luka Doncic can break down the offense, even on a bum knee. We know Kyrie Irving can do the exact same thing. And when the rest of the team gets the ball moving around comfortably, the rest of the league needs to be in trouble. Like I said, it's going to be in trouble. And number one thing, let's be clear, I'm going to keep it within this one game because you still have to come out the next game and handle your business. But just saying what the Mavericks took care of in Game 2, being on the road, you did not want to find yourself in a 2-0 hole, 0-2 hole, I'll say, trying to head back home to Dallas. This was a game I felt the Dallas Mavericks needed, and they came out there and handled their business. In about 27 minutes of playtime, Daniel Gafford, 13 points, 7 rebounds, a block, like I said, just being a low post presence. Derek Lively, it was not the cleanest game for him offensively. I believe 1 of 7 on field goals in about 20 minutes. But this is still a young guy learning the game. He's trying to figure out what exactly his counterparts, his counter actions can be. Because sometimes we've seen Derek Lively, he's been very comfortable with playing that pick and roll and that role guy getting to the rim. But sometimes I need him this offseason. The number one thing I've kind of noticed with Derek Lively is he kind of bobbles around with the ball a little bit when he gets it down low one time, and especially more so when it comes to making a decision of putting the ball up. Sometimes he is not very decisive. And again, we're talking about, this is a guy that's still 20 years old. He has a lot to work with, and this has been an up and down season for him, just everything he's kind of dealt with personally. So obviously a Derek Lively, just being out there and being active and given that energy, that's the number one thing we're expecting from him, and we got plenty of that. But we can also talk about the same way I just said Luka Doncic. Kyrie Irving, as soon as I said 9 points yesterday, he scores, but he ends up with 11 assists. Again, that playmaking that he was able to give. But to me, obviously I can talk about Luka Doncic, the hurt knee, and just being able to show some of that fire and show some of that, just that determination. No matter what we need, he knows that we need him. But we're talking about PJ Washington yesterday. I believe 29 points, 4 assists, 11 rebounds. This guy was all over the place and knocking down shots. I believe 7 of 11 on threes. I believe was his final on the stat sheet. You're looking at a guy like PJ Washington. If he's able to knock down shots, even semi-consistently, I'm not even saying I expect you to be as great as 7 of 11 every game. But if we can get a PJ Washington that can knock down 3 maybe a game, and we're talking about a guy that's probably going to find the capabilities to be able to get about 6 to 7 wide open 3-point looks, because you just have that dynamic of Luka and Kyrie attacking the basket, and guys are going to cut down on that and leave some of these corner shots wide open. If we can get PJ Washington to be semi-consistent from long range and that corner spot especially, but then just getting the fact that you see PJ Washington at certain points cutting to the basket, just that aggressiveness we need, because sometimes we have seen many times we didn't have guys. You're looking at a Dorian Finney-Smith who got a little bit better in the last couple seasons he was here, but a Reggie Bullock, that wasn't really his game. We're talking about guys that we have been used to playing out there on the perimeter for us. These are just 3-and-D guys. If they're not getting a 3-point shot, they can do nothing else. PJ Washington, you get that defensive presence. You get a Derrick Jones Jr., obviously, just shout out him every single game. The defensive presence, just flying around, rebounding, loose balls, all the things that both of those guys do. But PJ Washington putting up 29 points like that last night, that played major into the win for the Dallas Mavericks. Luka Doncic, like I said, on 29 points, this is a more of an efficient game. I believe 11 of 21. This is a situation where you're watching Luka Doncic and you're just asking him to be aggressive. We saw last night, I believe he was 5 of 8 on threes, something around that number. This is one of those games I said yesterday going into it. I want to see Luka Doncic take maybe 5 threes a game. Cut down on that. Try to get to the basket a little bit more, because we have seen Luka Doncic have the ability to still break down the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I want him to utilize those mid-range floaters, those mid-range jumpers, and now also those mid-range floaters you've seen him become very comfortable with over the years as well. So yesterday was just a game. If Luka Doncic can build on this, obviously he's still going to be a little banged up, but getting a day off of rest, I want to see him obviously have to travel back to Dallas. This is going to pay major dividends for the Mavericks going forward. I just want to continue to see this team fight, continue to show that aggressiveness, and we are going to be in for a ride. I truly believe if you're able to come out in Game 3 and take that win, you can probably find the Oklahoma City Thunder maybe stumbling back on their heels a little bit. So the Mavericks, they have a lot to play for coming up in Game 3. And as much love as you want to give the starting 5 and whoever, again, just contributing in different ways, in different aspects of the game, 2 guys that came off the bench and helped out, and I'm going to say right now, we don't win that game without both of these guys. Josh Green, 11 points off the bench, a nice couple 3-point shots I believe he knocks down. I believe 4 of 6 on field goals. Tim Hardaway Jr., 19 minutes, he has 17 points. This is a guy I said, if you're letting Tim Hardaway Jr. get hot, if he can find his flow, he can be the difference in some of these games. The number one thing we always want Tim Hardaway Jr. to do is be aggressive but smart. Sometimes he takes over with that aggressiveness, and sometimes it plays into the hands of not being smart, whether it's coming to just forcing up shots that maybe not be necessary, or just doing something that we just kind of find ourselves scratching our heads. But yesterday, Tim Hardaway Jr., especially go to in that third quarter, this is a guy you saw Tim Hardaway Jr. help out majorly when in scoring, because the Mavericks, there was a lull in the game. I see for both teams where you see both teams are kind of having a little bit of an issue getting the ball in the basket. And I'm going to say the defense yesterday was not really up to par, but it also kind of played into the same fact. And when you're watching, I think the Mavericks are still adjusting. Game 2 was still an adjustment game, because you're still trying to figure out how exactly are the officials going to be calling this series. And one of those things you've seen, Shai Gilgeous, he was very efficient, somewhat similarly yesterday to a guy like I'm talking about a Luka Doncic and some of the better players, better performances from the Mavericks yesterday. Shai Gilgeous on the other side was very efficient. But when you're looking at a guy who's easily able to get to the basket, and obviously the officials have shown they have no problem giving him the foul calls, the Dallas Mavericks were still, in my personal opinion, I'm going to say, trying to figure out exactly how to play defensively against a team like that. But at the end of the day, like I said, a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr., he and Josh Green off the bench, those were two guys that helped out majorly for the Mavericks, and we definitely don't pull out that win in game 2 without them. Coming up tomorrow, game 3, it will be 2:30 p.m. Central Time on ABC, I believe. The Dallas Mavericks, again, this is the perfect opportunity to find themselves with another series lead. We saw exactly what they were able to do in that Clippers series. If you can come home, pull out that game 3 win, now you're going to be able to put yourself in position, again, like I said, to maybe find yourself having the Oklahoma City Thunder stumbling behind a little bit. Obviously, it's still a very important team that you're going to have to stay ready and stay focused for, because, again, we're talking about the number 1 seed in the entire Western Conference, and this is a tight and tough Western Conference this year. So the Oklahoma City Thunder, as young as they are, they're coming out ready in game 3, because they are going to want to get their lick back. They gave up one on the road, gave up a game at home, and I'm sure they want to try to even that out and take one back on the road. So the Mavericks are going to have to come in here with that same fire, let Luka Doncic kind of feel his way through. I want to see Kyrie Irving. If we're not going to get a guy that we're talking about scoring, which I still feel like there are going to be certain points in this series, obviously you're going to need Kyrie Irving to score a little bit more than 9 points. This was a situation, like I said, if you're going to get a Kyrie Irving who's just going to play that ultimate playmaker position, that playmaker role on this team, and just having that veteran leadership, you've been seeing him come to Luka Doncic's aid multiple times already. So this is going to be a guy, if Kyrie Irving is going to be able to play that veteran leader role and just be able to be more of a playmaker for us, and let Luka Doncic maybe play off the ball a little bit more and work his way into the post game, which we saw utilized a lot yesterday, then the Mavericks are still going to be able to find some efficient offense going forward when we may find ourselves in maybe those simple lulls in scoring throughout the game. So the Dallas Mavericks game 3 will be tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. Central Time. I already know what a lot of people were thinking, especially Mavericks fans. The Dallas Mavericks, for some reason, we always find ourselves in these weird games when it's earlier starts. So hopefully we can kind of rectify that and not have one of these slow starts, because we do know the Mavericks sometimes, I feel like, not that we get overly confident, but I feel like sometimes when we start to have a little bit of success and we start to feel ourselves a little bit, you do start to see that discipline take a notch down sometimes. And I feel like if we're going to be, again, one of those teams we're talking about looking forward, and now you're looking at the rest of the Western Conference and looking at the Minnesota Timberwolves taking care of the Denver Nuggets right now. That series is still obviously going to be going on, but today will be game 3 for that. So if the Minnesota Timberwolves find themselves with a 3-0 lead on the Denver Nuggets, the Mavericks could find themselves, if they want to be facing off against the Timberwolves, you want to wrap this thing up as early as you can, because you don't want to be sitting here playing all these physical 6-7 game series and watching the Timberwolves completely just be able to find a whole week of rest without you being able to do the same thing. So I appreciate all the support. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and share. We're going to continue to grow the channel. I want to know what you guys thought about the game last night. What do you think about I guess you want to say the dynamic of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving right now? How do you feel about Luka Doncic I guess you want to say maybe giving a little bit more of that responsibility of playmaking and handling the ball and just running the offense to Kyrie Irving? Do you feel like maybe that's kind of the route we should take going forward? How do you feel about PJ Washington developing into just an all-around player? Do you think this is one of those one-off games, or do you feel like this is something we're going to consistently see going forward? I appreciate you guys for all the support once again. As always, go Mavericks, and enjoy the rest of your day.